Hi creative friends, this is Rhea and thank you so much for being here. So today I am going to do a tutorial on middle layers when my first layers incorporated oil pastels. Now I did not use the water soluble kind because those are not readily available all over the world. So I just use this brand over here, which is spelled MUNGYO. It is a mid-grade to lower grade oil pastel, but I really love the colors. And because you don't want to use a really thick creamy oil pastel in your first layers, I thought this would be a great brand to use. So what I'm going to do first of all is just kind of show you what I did. So this is all oil pastel. All the circles are oil pastel, and some of this is oil pastel, but some of it is also Stabilo. And I've also used acrylic paints, acrylic inks. I've used some of this Thai handmade paper. So as you can see here, I put that collage and then I went over top of it with oil pastel and with probably my Inktense pencil. So I just mixed a whole bunch of things. And I'm really loving the like sketch-like quality of the oil pastels. And when I use oil pastels, I also tend to use more Stabilos and Inktense and just very linear tools that are going to give me lines that are going to complement the lines of the oil pastels. So what I did here is, I think in the beginning I had a piece of Bristol paper and then I did a sketch of a face and a figure, and I did it with using a blue Stabilo, and I was just doing a warm-up exercise. So then over top of it, I added my oil pastels and all the other mixed media, and this is still a first layer. So now I'm probably, well, actually this might be a first/second layer, and so now I'm going into my middle layers. So I'm going to get a viewfinder out and just take a look at all the gorgeous stuff that I am really loving. Like, there's a lot on this page that I absolutely love, and the problem I'm going to have is figuring out what to keep and what to get rid of, because I'm really just loving a lot of the page. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to try to see where I'm going to place my figure. And because I already had drawn a face prior to me putting my first layers on, I think I'm gonna go with the face that's already here in terms of the placement. So I'm just using my blue Stabilo and I'm just drawing over top of it here. And I made a video a short while ago about how we can incorporate oil pastels into our mixed media works, because a lot of times we tend to think that because oil and water don't mix, we can't use oil pastels in our mixed media works, but especially not in our first and middle layers. So I will link that video down below in case you were interested in watching it. And then I also did another video that was creating first layers with oil pastels. So I will link that video as well. So I am really loving so much of this page. Like, my problem is going to be, what am I going to be able to cover up? Because I want to keep like way too much of the page. I really love, there's something about the like drawing quality of an oil pastel that I really love in mixed media work. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to cover up, like build up the tones in the face. So, and I'm not even sure like if I'm gonna go like with a very abstract figure or if I'm gonna make a more built up face. and then, you know, keep some of the other parts of it abstract. I'm really not sure about that right now. But anyways, let me just build up the face a little bit here. And I'm just mixing my Liquitex Burnt Sienna. But, you know, depending on the type of colors you're wanting for your figures, you may go for a different color. But I'm using this Liquitex acrylic ink in Burnt Sienna, and it's transparent. So I'm just gonna kind of go like that. And I actually want to bring some of this into the hair. Now, this is a great illustration of how we can allow the art materials that we're using to work to our advantage. So when I'm putting this over top of the oil pastel, some of it is resisting. It's still going over top of it, but there are parts of it that are resisting it and that are going to show through. And I'm going to keep that in the hair. Like, I actually love that. I don't want everything to be really flat. I want there to be some variation in the hair and in, you know, in the painting. Like, I don't want things to always be a flat color field. So knowing that it's going to resist, I can use that to my advantage. And I'm just gonna use my finger here. And I want to bring more of this color into the hair. Another color that I love to bring into the hair is just a dark blue. And it just makes for beautiful variations. When I do use a brown to cover up, to model the hair. And I'm going to use my black Stabilo here. And I'm just dipping it right into the wet, you know, ink here. That's a great thing about the Stabilo. It just goes over anything. So I'm just going to use my paintbrush and just kind of bring it over into different parts of the hair here. So I'm really loving this and this actually. And one of the great things about mixed media is that, like, if I wanted to have 10 suns, I can have 10 suns. I'm not aiming for realism. So because I love both of those, I might keep both of them as suns. And I think what I want to do is I'm going to use my oil pastel. So I'm still going to stick to the same color, which is a blue. And I'm going to bring some of it into the hair. So whereas in the first layer, I used my oil pastel in a very like sketchy way, I was drawing. Now I can kind of blend it a little bit. You may not want to, but you know, I tend not to blend the oil pastel in my first layers. I leave that for my middle layers and my last layers, but I'm still using the really, you know, cheaper grade oil pastel because I want a hard mark. I don't want a really creamy mark like the Sennelier. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to figure out a background color so that I can unify the page and kind of make the figure stand out more. And I'm also going to have to figure out what do I want to keep. And as much as I would like to keep this part, I think I'm going to have to cover up the neck, because if I keep the dress and the neck, it's just going to be too much. They're competing with each other. So unfortunately, even though I don't want to, I am going to cover up this part. Now, because there's oil pastel, there's going to be a little bit of a resist. It's going to go over it, but it's going to make for some interesting kind of, it's going to make for an interesting field of color. Like, if you can see that. So I'm going to put more of that ink. And I was asked a little while ago on one of my other videos what kind of acrylic inks I use, and I generally tend to stick to a few brands. My favorite is Liquitex, but I also have FW and I also have Dr. P.H. Martin. And I just think, you know, just experiment, see what you like. And generally I go for certain colors. You know, so if a color really attracts me, I go for that more than I do with the brand. As long as it's a professional brand of acrylic inks, I think they're all pretty much the same quality. So I'm just kind of modeling her face a little bit here, and I don't want to get too fussy. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do for the background is I think I want to go for a lighter color. And I'm just going to leave all of this. I really love the pattern on the dress. And so I'm going to leave it as is. I'm really loving so much of this. So I'm going to leave that alone. And so I have, this is my Waverly chalk paint in Cashew, and I'm just going to go over the background here. I'm going to try to keep some of it, but you know, obviously I can't keep too much of it because it's going to compete with the dress here, and I don't want that. So unfortunately, a lot of this is going to get covered up. And sometimes that's difficult because, you know, I might really love something, but it has to go. But if I don't cover it up, it's just going to be too busy, and that's going to look really bad. So and another thing about using the chalk paint is it will cover up almost anything. So even though this is oil pastel, it's just covering it up. And when the blue mixes with the cream paint, it's still going to retain its neutral color. It's just going to be it's just going to cool it down. So it's really not going to change the color of the paint. And I really want to keep some of that. I don't know if I can, but this is still my middle layer, so if I cover something up, it's going to be impossible for me to get it back. But if I leave it, I can always cover it up later. So I like to err on the side of caution and think, okay, well, I'll just, if I really think I can keep something, I'm going to keep it because, you know, I can always cover it up later. So I think that's good for now. And now I'm just going to use some brown acrylic paint for the hair. And I'm gonna let some of the oil pastels show through here. And that's just gonna give the hair some interest and dimension, so it's not like really flat. And I think I can retain like some of this color over here, this peachy pink color in the hair. Like when you play around and have a very playful mind and you're not even going for realism, a lot of times you'll be surprised at the colors that work with certain things. Like you might not think, well, you know, pink hair mixed in with the brown, but actually it just makes it really interesting. And I think it goes beautifully actually. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some more of this ink here. So now what I'm going to do is allow this to completely dry, and then I'm going to come back and work on it. But as you can see, I'm using just a cheaper grade oil pastel, and I am, you know, mixing it in with my mixed media. And the fact that it's messy is only adding to the beauty of the piece. And, you know, even here, as you can see, like I moved the oil pastel through here and it picked up some of the paint. So the pink is showing through, but then it's stuck over here. And so now I have some blue. So I would just say experiment, try different things, see what you like, see what works for you. And you can get some really interesting effects with using this oil pastel with your mixed media. And at the end of it, I can seal it with my Mod Podge so that the oil pastel doesn't move. So you can spray it with a fixative, but the fixative does not seal it 100%. And I found that the Mod Podge works best. Now, you don't have to use Mod Podge. You can also use a Liquitex. It's a Liquitex varnish. And it's basically, it acts as glue, but it also is a varnish as well. So there are lots of different ways to seal the oil pastel. And anyways, if you've watched all the way to the end, I hope you've learned something from this video, and I hope that it's been inspiring to you. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.